if you don't have a strong right arm. This is a tough time of year to be given the honor of Hagbah, of lifting up the Torah for all to see after it's read. We're right at the end of the Torah, and the whole thing is rolled over to the right side. This week on Simchat Torah, we'll read those final words of Deuteronomy, the death of Moses, the end of the journey, a change in leadership, and then we'll roll it back to the beginning and read the first words of Genesis, words of creation, when we go transition from nothingness to the world that we know and to the life of humankind. We begin again the narrative that helps us to define ourselves as a people and that helps us make meaning of the world we share. When we begin, the whole thing will be rolled back over to the left side, and Hagbah will be tough for the righties. But this Shabbat, in the middle of Sukkot, we break from the extremes of beginning and end, and we read a special passage much nearer the middle of the Torah. Instead of the end of the wandering and Moses' death, and instead of the creation of the world and the birth of mankind, we venture into the middle, into the sacred journey between. This portion, called Ki Tisa, that Nathaniel will read from, is actually a bit like the bar mitzvah of the Jewish people. The Israelites are fresh out of slavery, wandering in the desert, not so sure where they're going to go, and they end up at Mount Sinai, where they receive the commandments. It's that moment when our people accepts responsibility for what's expected of us. It's the moment when the Jewish people becomes an adult. Among the commandments that Moses brings down from the mountain is a directive to celebrate the festivals of Pesach, of Shavuot, of Sukkot, and that's why we read the portion on this holiday, but the portion is perfect for Sukkot for another reason too. Sukkot is one of the rare holidays in Judaism that isn't tied to an event. It's not tied to a moment in history. Pesach is about the exodus from Egypt. Hanukkah is about the Maccabees' victory. Shabbat, even, is about the end of creation. But Sukkot is about what happened in between the big moments. It's just about how our people lived life in the wilderness. Today's Torah portion is perfect for a holiday about living because it contains great wisdom about how to do just that. There are commands about being steadfast in faith. That's helpful. We read about Moses asking God for help. That's a good thing to know how to do. But my favorite part is 7 words that God says to Moses when describing God. You may have just heard these words during the high holidays when God self-describes as Rachum v'chanun erech apayim v'rav chesed ve'emet, compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, full of kindness and truth. God's qualities, according to God. I'm going to have to trust. But as a people who believes that humans are made in the image of God, we know that the greatest qualities of God can also be our aspirations. We know that to be more godly is also to be more human, to be compassionate and gracious, to be slow to anger, to be full of kindness and truth. That is knowing how to live. There's a well-known story about the man who challenges the two rabbis, Hillel and Shammai, asked them to describe the Torah on one foot. Shammai promptly kicks him out, saying he has no time for that kind of silliness. Hillel, when asked, lifts a foot up off the ground and says, "What is hateful to you, do not do to any person." That's the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. Go and learn it. It's an excellent answer that Rabbi Hillel gave. I'm sure he'd be happy to hear me say so. But Hillel could just as easily have said these words: be compassionate and gracious, be slow to anger, be full of kindness and truth. That is the whole Torah. 7 Hebrew words from this Torah portion. The Torah is not made of it's not cliff notes, it's not made of little sound bites, but if we need a quick guide for how to elevate our lives, for how to lift ourselves up, Rachum v'chanun erech apayim v'rav chesed ve'emet. Be compassionate, gracious, patient, kind, and truthful. All the rest is commentary. Sukkot is about how we lived in the wilderness. Nathaniel, your becoming bar mitzvah is, we hope, about how it's about how you'll live through your own journey. We pray that compassion and grace, patience, kindness, and truth will guide your steps the whole way, and that they'll guide ours as well. Beginnings and endings in Torah and in life are weighty. They're momentous and they're memorable, but they're made that way mostly by what happens in between, by the journey. this Shabbat and during Sukkot, right near the middle of the Torah, just about where the scrolls are becoming balanced for the easiest possible lifting, we find these words that elevate our own journeys and that help us to lift up our communities and lift up our world.